But I guess there are a couple of ideas I can chat about to start with, especially to make sure that we've got common understanding of a few different terms. I mean, I've been going to conferences for an open spaces for a couple of years, and every time I go, I put up something on the wall saying climate change and, you know, agile coaching or product managing or whatever the thing is about. And it's really interesting every time a couple of people come along and we have a bit of a conversation, and I kind of go, well, what else can we do with this agile stuff about climate change? And I've picked up some ideas as we go along, but I'm really hoping to kind of pick up some more this evening, rather than kind of like have a bunch of set answers. That said, though, I did write an article that I thought had kind of a smart arse title a few months ago, saying that agile coaches are going to save the world from climate change. And in that, I put in a few ideas about agile ways of working that I feel like might be kind of relevant. So I might kind of go over, there's a couple of bullet points on that and just chat about those. And there's some terms in there that I feel will be useful then for the rest of the conversation. What do agile coaches do is kind of how this was all framed from the point of view of a coach, but it kind of talks to the different ways that teams and organizations that are working in an agile way, what they look like. So coaches help teams organize large bodies of work into sort of prioritized lists, which we call backlogs. I know some people on the call have already worked in kind of agile ways in teams before, and some people haven't from the people that I've chatted to. So just to kind of clarify that, I guess a backlog is really just like an organized list of work to be done that's prioritized in some way. So from a climate change point of view, that might be in terms of what are the quickest wins that we could do versus the longest projects that we might do, or it might be what are the most expensive things and we do those first, or what are the cheapest things, maybe you might do those first. So the list is prioritized in some way that makes sense. The idea really is that you start at the top and you work your way down through the highest priority things down to the lowest. The second thing that I kind of was kind of musing about in this was that, well, like agile teams typically are designed to be a culture of kind of innovation and discovery. Like it assumes that you don't need to know everything when you start a piece of work, and the bigger the piece of work, the less likely you're going to know anything anyway. And it's very particularly designed to allow people and teams kind of look at a problem, solve the first piece, learn something, solve the second piece, solve the third piece. And yeah, so for huge problems like climate change, or even climate change as it applies to my country, or if you break it down smaller to climate change as it applies to my organization, still huge sets of problems for people to address. So as a way of kind of approaching work and organizing people to work together, it's awesome that you don't really need to know everything at the beginning. You just need a kind of a sense of what you'd like to see when you're finished, and a stable planet with a stable climate and an environment that's kind of life-giving and life-preserving would be really nice. So you've got a direction that you want to go in, and a big backlog or a body of work that we need to undertake. This is quite a nice way of approaching it, and in a way it makes it approachable for people. So that's the kind of second defining piece, I suppose, about agile teams and how they work. There's a really nice emphasis too on like people kind of flourishing within the way teams work together. So we should be enjoying ourselves as we go about this. Is my sense of that. We should enjoy our work. We spend an awful lot of our lives doing it, and it would be nice to be able to carry that into facing the most, existential crisis that humanity has ever faced before. So I feel that's an important aspect of agile ways of working too. And the last piece then is contained, I suppose, in the word agile itself. Like the whole thing about agile and agileness is that you don't just make a plan and then follow it for the next 55 years and hope that when you get to the end that it was the right plan and it all worked. You basically do a piece and you adjust and you learn and you respond to what's in front of you. And I've just given some examples there of how much we've all had to reevaluate our lives and what's important in them and how we work, or if we work, and the kind of work we do, all sorts of things, just in response to COVID-19, which so far at least has been a reasonably sort of short to medium term thing, and is really sort of only a starter compared to the amount of and the scope of the challenges that we're going to have to kind of, I mean, as a civilization, that we're going to have to look at to address climate change. So they're kind of the patterns and kind of ways of working as groups that work really well in small teams, working in small projects, but like apply themselves out to like bigger and more ambitious kind of undertakings as well. So the piece that's maybe missing in all that is, even if there's well-established ways of working in agile teams and all of that, like kind of the question is like, what are we going to do about climate change? And in some ways, it's such a vast question that it's sort of unapproachable as a single question. And lots of people find the thing they're interested in, and they go and they concentrate on the piece that they have some skills or knowledge or some kind of specialization in. But what's the kind of big picture of it all? So the other thing that I mentioned in the kind of notes on the Slack channel before the talk is something called Project Drawdown. Actually, can I get a show of hands if you've heard of Project Drawdown before? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, cool. Okay, so I really like, I'm just going to change tabs here and chuck the solutions page of the Drawdown website up for a second, because when I saw this first, I was really sort of delighted after looking at it for a while and being very interested in everything. And I guess it seems like pretty much all familiar with this. If you look at any one of these, like this one, for example, yeah. So this is like it's the value of this is kind of expressed in a few different ways, like the amount of gigatons of carbon that will be kind of sequestered or avoided or reduced by doing this piece of work, then the kind of cost of it, and there's a range of costs of how much will it cost to do it. So kind of how much bang for your buck do you get as the third piece is like, what's the kind of return on it? So I started thinking about this going, well, that's interesting. So somebody has sat down with a project and researched for a few years and come up with a whole lot of different solutions or approaches to climate change. And not only that, but they've rank them against each other. And if I navigate to the table of solutions, yeah, you have what to my mind looks like the world's biggest and greatest like prioritized backlog. The amount of work that's gone into this to prepare it and get it ready is extraordinary. And you can sort it on basically what the, here I'll sort it in order of like the most, basically, in this case, the most kind of the scenario 2 column on the right hand side. So the solution is onshore wind turbines, and they basically will avoid 140, nearly 150 gigatons of carbon, either reduced or, well, in this case, avoided, not sequestered, and all the other things then kind of afterwards in a rank. So this is astonishing from a kind of a world perspective, or looking at like a whole civilization point of view. And all the more amazing because it looks exactly like a prioritized backlog that any kind of agile team working on anything would be kind of familiar with and would know what to do with if they had that kind of put in front of them. So I feel like those are the two kind of frame up pieces for this as a conversation. One is there are kind of ways of working that, amongst other things, help people work very well together and depend on well prioritized lists to succeed. And the second is this massive prioritized list that, you know, essentially is the salvation of us if we do everything on it and do it well and do it in time. And my interest from here, like, is to have a conversation with people about, like, how do these two things intersect? Can you see this kind of happening already? Can you see potential for doing more of this, or like, what are your thoughts or opinions or ideas about it?